I have serious concerns about the sanctions on Iran.
He announced crippling sanctions to starve the innocent people of Iran.
The U.S. government has vengefully refused to lift its unlawful and collective punishment.
There is no sanction on medicines going to Iran. There's no sanctions on humanitarian assistance going into that country.
آمریکایی‌ها چند بار تا حالا سران آمریکا گفتن که ما حاضریم که از لحاظ درمان و دارو به شما کمک کنیم.
I have let it be known that we'll help people, including North Korea, including Iran, and including many other countries. It's very important to do that.
Iran have rejected fresh offers of aid from the United States. Instead, the Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said Monday that if Washington was serious about helping contain the coronavirus outbreak, then it should lift sanctions in the country.
Iran will take some of that money that they're going to get from the frozen assets that are now being unfrozen, that they'll use it on to create mischief, more mischief in the area. What is the U.S. prepared to do about that? How do you see that playing out?
We're going to clamp down. They're not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to do that outside even of this agreement. There is a UN resolution that specifically applies to them not being allowed to transfer to Hezbollah.
موازنة حزب الله ومعاشاته ومصاريفه وأكله وشربه وسلاحه وصواريخه من الجمهورية الإسلامية في إيران.
And in fact, we should expect that some portion of that money would go to the Iranian military and could potentially be used for the kinds of bad behavior that we have seen in the region up until now. But the goal is to ensure that they don't have a nuclear weapon. Just to be clear, they're sending money now while they're under sanctions. There's nothing currently that is preventing them from sending money.
They're going to have a lot more money if in fact the sanctions are lifted.
They will have more money.
Now, we talk about their nuclear weapon and the nuclear threat that's coming out of Iran, but this is the real nuclear weapon on the ground. This is what affects change in the region. This is what's kept dictators in power that the Iranians have wanted. For instance, Bashar al-Assad. It's the Shia militias that supported him. Iran acquired a lot of its recruits from Iraq, from Syria. They've actually built a network within Syria, from Lebanon with Lebanese Hezbollah. They've also recruited Afghan refugees, both within Iran and outside of Iran, and even Pakistani Shia, and how they use these different Shia militia groups. Sometimes they have government recognition. Sometimes they have tens of thousands of men at the front, and the acknowledgement isn't really there, but meanwhile, Iran is reaping all the benefits. These groups have been consistently threatening the United States and its interests in the region.
طالما بإيران في فلوس يعني نحن في عنا فلوس.
Six-month investigation by Reuters. Now, it turns out that Khamenei controls a business empire worth $95 billion. That's a huge sum that exceeds the value of Iran's current annual petroleum exports. Now, basically, he's at the head of a little-known organization called Sittad that holds stakes in nearly every sector of the industry, including the financial industry, oil industry, the ostrich farming industry as well. Basically, this organization, Sittad, has built its empire by systematically seizing thousands of properties and reselling them, so kind of a property empire that it's built. And it's thanks to the revenue generated by this organization that Khamenei has managed to hold on to power for so long.
Call it the maximum pressure campaign. Is there any evidence that it in fact is working in a way that would change Iran's behavior?
The regime in Iran is having to make a fundamental choice between guns and butter. And by having to make that choice, they're cutting payments and credit lines and support to Shiite militias, to Hezbollah fighters. And there's a real financial squeeze now for these terrorist organizations and proxies that Iran has long supported.
لما عم نحكي عن عقوبات أمريكية من المتوقع أن تشتد على داعمينا وعلينا. هذه المساندة الشعبية وهذا الاحتضان الشعبي، نعم، أنا أعلن اليوم أن المقاومة بحاجة إليه.
The Iranian government has carried out a medium-range missile test launch.
Has successfully tested a new mid-range
Iran
ballistic
test-fired
missile.
2 types of medium-range ballistic missiles Wednesday.
We have Iran deal, and a lot of people know that before the deal, all the government, they really cared about human rights because they wanted to get Iranian government to sit and negotiate with them about the nuclear deal. But after the deal, they totally ignored human rights. Sanction hurts people. Yes, general sanction hurts people. But we want you to sanction those oppressors who hurt their own people.
اگر تحریم ها برداشته بشه با فروش نفت و منابع ایران اسلحه خواهند خرید و با اون اسلحه فرزندان ما رو خواهند کشت یا پولی که میگیرن میبرن کشورهای عراق، یمن، لبنان، فلسطین به اونا کمک میکنن، به مردم ایران کمک نمیکنن.